A couple of years ago when I was running the content jury at Cannes, John Hegarty, who's a legend in our business, came out at one point and said something along the lines of, all this branded content stuff is kind of great, but we have to be careful because, we're not competing against other commercials, we're competing against, other forms of content and entertainment, and are we good enough to do that? And his implication at the time was that we weren't. Your founding last year of the Tribeca X Awards indicates maybe we are. What are you trying to get at with those?
When I got to Tribeca, the film festival had a great tradition of awarding fantastic features, documentaries, shorts, but didn't really care about anything that came out of what we used to call Madison Avenue. So that just seemed ludicrous, that all of us had to go to the south of France to win an award when we're in New York City. So my argument was, there is great work being presented by brands, and we should acknowledge that and make that a formal part of the festival. So I got there in January. It was a couple of months before, so we kind of jammed it in, and we got 150 submissions. This year, we got 600 submissions of astonishing quality. We had our programmers narrow that down to 10, and then we had a jury select the winner. And I'm very proud of the work. We screened it in a theater, and it's as good as anything you'll ever see.
And we should note that you had some Madison Avenue bona fides as well. For those who don't know, Andrew was the CEO of Droga 5. You were actually a journalist before that, so you've had a couple of stops in the career. I want to show a minute and a half of what was the winning work that you awarded the Tribeca X Award to last week during the festival, and then have you tell us why you think this piece of work stood out for your jury this year.
Great.
Can we play the video? So beautiful. That's a minute and a half of a 7-minute film. Tell us who the brand is and tell us why you think this worked for the brand and why it worked for the jury.
Does anyone want to guess? So we had, as I said, 10 submissions. I had no control over what was picked. But of the 10 submissions, a lot of them came from the biggest brands on earth. This turns out to be a film made by Smirnoff. And it was picked because it has all the attributes that you want from any great piece of content. Amazing craft, a real story, a real character, tremendous authenticity, humanity, empathy. And it ends with people dancing, deaf people dancing to music. And there's a very minimal, if non-existent brand presence at the end.
So there are a number of films now that we are seeing rise to this level. We Could Be King, which you guys were involved with for Dick's Sporting Goods, won a sports Emmy, I believe. The Beauty Inside for Intel a few years back won a daytime Emmy. There have been so many movies now accepted at Sundance and Tribeca and other film festivals as films first, not just within an advertising award, including Werner Herzog's Lo and Behold, which was produced by Rupert Mechanic, who's going to be up here in a little while. Do you think that we're getting to this point, and do you think that for some of the world's greatest storytellers, people like Werner Herzog, or Paul Haggis and Steve Levitan that we're going to hear from later. Why are the world's best storytellers now okay with working with brands as opposed to seeing it as a sellout?
Sure. I think there are a variety of factors that we're all aware of, but probably the biggest one is just abundance. So there are, 437 scripted shows on what we used to call TV right now? So there's more content than anyone can consume in a day. So it creates this sort of flight to quality, that actually the only stuff that cuts through is good stuff, and shit sinks like never before. And our industry traditionally has basically jammed shit down people's throats with a lot of paid media to force it down into the gullet. And I think that's a completely broken and flawed model that doesn't work anymore in an age of this kind of abundance. So filmmakers, storytellers, are not afraid to work with brands as long as they understand what the brand's objectives are, and that's transparent. And they want to make work that people want to see rather than run screaming from.
I believe you. I agree with you. And that's kind of the gospel of what we're preaching here. And in fact, you said in the New York Times recently, quote, traditional advertising tends to annoy people. You have to add value to people's lives rather than bombard them with a pitch and a hard sell. And toward that end, you've just written a book that comes out, I think, next month. You've called it The End of Advertising. Why?
Look, I think the last thing I want to do is mansplain to this sophisticated audience, but I think we all are awake. I have a 9-year-old daughter. She had never seen a commercial until she watched the Olympics. And if that's a focus group of one, it's not necessarily a good sign. And when she saw the commercials during the Olympics, she said, and I paraphrase, "What the fuck is this?" I didn't ask to see this. And that's probably not a good sign. So if those brands had tried to make something more thoughtful or more contextually relevant, something that add value to people's lives, perhaps they would also sell more shampoo.
So what impact would you hope a book like that has on the industry, on the mindsets, on the, if we came back and invite you to stand here a year from now, how different do you think the conversation would be, should be, could be? What would you want it to be?
Well, I think that we see X% of the industry moving away from traditional interruption. So this is a gradual process, and not everyone can do it. But going back to those 10 submissions, we had beautiful films from Apple, from Square, from Yeti, who's doing stunning work. And I think that the industry tends to sort of follow the shiny penny, and it's probably a good barometer of where things are going. So I'd just like to see more good work and less bad work.
So again, we've seen, as I mentioned, obviously some of this work is beginning to be work that's at the level of winning Emmys, being accepted in film festivals. Is there a degree to which, I sometimes say that at the risk of putting myself out of a job, content won't be a separate thing X number of years from now, it's just going to be marketing. How long until, do you want to obsolete the Tribeca X Awards ultimately and just have this work competing with everything else out there?
Yeah, we sometimes talk about the inevitable confluence of the Cannes Film Festival and the Cannes Lion, right? That one was this sort of embarrassed stepchild, and as entertainment becomes more a function of marketing, they converge. So I think everything is moving in that direction. It's not necessarily going to put anyone out of work, it's just going to make us try a little harder.
All right, that's an awesome viewpoint. Thanks a lot for joining us today, Andrew. Thank you.